This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
The practice of present moment awareness takes us directly into the raw experience of life in this moment now, exactly as it is. In that sense, our way out is through the tough terrain we'd hoped to avoid, but with a totally different mindset and perspective than we have had before. We have practiced the perspective of egocentricity from a very young age, so have mostly come to experience ourselves as totally alone in the world, trapped within ourselves, our thoughts, feelings, our past, and so on. In present moment awareness, we can quite rapidly become aware of a silent, still, and spacious presence deep within us that is, in fact, not shaken by the storm of discomfort or pain we may feel is raging all around us. By stopping our efforts to escape, becoming still, silent, and aware of the empty space around us and within us, we can make a connection with our own innate state of pure, divine presence. That is to say, we can make a direct connection to the dimension of spirit. Practicing present moment awareness takes you directly into the reality of this present moment. So, if there is unresolved pain or trauma still within you in this moment, it stands to reason that you will face it when you become more present. But do not fear. Whatever trauma that might be revealed is no match for the disarming love and compassion and healing kindness of the gaze of presence. This is the heart of compassion that resides in the very fabric of our awareness and which can untangle the most twisted of knots. If you can sit and notice silence and space and stillness at the very moment you are experiencing the arising of fear, pain, suffering, anxiety, panic, sadness, depression, grief, craving, despair, or any other form of troublesome human experience, then you will be presenting that human suffering directly to the heart of presence, and therefore to unconditional love. Remaining present as you move through any kind of pain will bring the light of pure love to that pain and aid your recovery from it and your passage through to a renewal and regeneration of that part of yourself. Valeria Tellis interviews Mike Jenkins, the author of The Gift of the Present, How to Experience More Peace, Joy, and Happiness Through Present Moment Awareness. Mike began exploring spiritual practice with a voracious zeal after a diagnosis of cancer at the age of 29. In 2010, he began to experience more profound changes in his perception of himself, others, and of life, and began writing about this on a blog. He has given talks in Leicester, Yorkshire, Lancaster, London, and Brighton, recorded dozens of videos on YouTube, was interviewed on the popular spiritual awakening video series Buddha at the Gas Pump, and has written many articles and short ebooks. Mike currently hosts regular weekly and monthly present moment awareness group sessions on Zoom, offers private guided sessions for individuals, and shares articles, ebooks, and MP3 meditations on his website. Meet Mike at heartofpresence.co.uk. Here is the interview with Mike Jenkins.
In your own words, who is Mike Jenkins?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I could answer that from the perspective of who I am on the outward level, which, would be a story of me. So I'm Mike. I was born on the south coast of England, went to school, became an actor, went to drama school, had all these life experiences, worked for a time as a professional actor, but also having to sort of do temp jobs in between that kind of work. And most of my early life, really in my 20s, was disrupted. There was a lot of mental distress and emotional distress, struggling to survive with money and finances. I left drama school with a lot of debt. And so that part of my life, at the time, it was just what it was. I loved being away at drama school. I loved all the experiences I had. When I look back on it now, I see that there was a sense of being really lost, just lost in the story of, well, not so much the story, just lost in the reality of trying to make my way in the world. So then at age 29, I was diagnosed with cancer. And that experience led me, of course, to sort of encounter the very real possibility of death. So that brings us to the second way to answer that question, which is we don't really know. Who am I on the ultimate level is a very deep cone. It's a very deep question that doesn't really have an answer in words. So the way I look at that these days, and of course I don't say this second answer to the question to very many people, because they'd think, what's he going on about? But the way I see myself these days is just this ever-changing expression of a complete unique individual. So there are aspects to me that are uniquely me, outgoing and friendly and kind and humorous, but also short-tempered and easily bored and all these things. But I think that the answer to that question these days is who I am, and what I am is a unique expression called Mike of the same essence and source of all life that we all are. And it's that in a funny kind of way, it's that realization that has got me through all of those life's difficulties so far.
How do you define spirituality these days, Mike?
Well, that's a tricky one. I think we live in an age where language and labels and words mean so many things to so many different people. So to me, if I talk of spirituality, in a way I'm talking of this, something that's not really not spiritual in the way that most people think of it. So I think, on one level, spirituality might be referring to the aspect of the divine in the world, whether that's a religious expression of the divine. But through these experiences that I've had, what seems to me, and there are plenty of authors and great teachers who've said this before, so I'm certainly quoting somebody when we say that actually there isn't anything that isn't spiritual. Everything is God, and God is everything, or everything is Christ, and it's so, or Buddha, or the way, the Tao, so in that sense, all of life is spiritual. It's not just the stuff that feels good. So that's challenging for us as humans, of course, but so that's one. So to me, life is spiritual.
I love that. Do you believe that the human experience has a purpose?
On the outer level, relatively speaking, yes, I believe it does. I think that there probably is some coherent purpose for humanity and the planet. I think, we're all coming to realize now much more clearly that we're inextricably linked to nature. We're part of the body of the world, almost like individual cells in the body of the planet, but also the universe, all the planets and stars and different solar systems and galaxies, but also then on the very micro level as individuals. I think that we probably do have a purpose, but I'm not so sure that it's fixed. I think that it's revealed and created in each moment almost. So I think that some people can work towards what they perhaps feel is their life's purpose and seemingly, achieve that. And maybe they're sort of on purpose, if you like, with the essence of their own being. But I also think a person's purpose in life can change unexpectedly and or go in different directions.
That sounds like fun. When I think about intuition, that's what comes to mind. It's playful, isn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes I think sometimes we don't, we're not really sure whether we're following our purpose. But my sense is that when things kind of have a bit of ease to them and they kind of go with a bit more flow, then I think we're probably on purpose. We're following our purpose in those moments. So it's interesting you mentioned intuition, because I think we can sense when things are quite right, and when they are, then things are just flowing.
When you talk about nature, I think about balance, that harmony and balance. What is your idea of balance, and do you connect balance to the idea of healing?
Yes, I do actually. But I also think that the wisdom of nature and achieving that balance sometimes involves chaos or disruption. So in a funny kind of way, I think that's all part of it. So what happened to me with the cancer, it was like there was this collision in my body that could have been going on for some time. So outwardly, whether that was lifestyle choices, I used to smoke cigarettes. I used to drink as a student. Maybe modern diets. I certainly, the mental health problems that I had in my 20s probably contributed to oxidative stress. All of the buildup of toxins in the body. So I think that sometimes that the achievement of harmony or balance, comes about in ways that we don't really think of as harmonic.
Yeah, yes, true.
Yes,
true, so true.
Yeah, I think that it is. It's like a dance, really, isn't it? Or like a piece of music, an orchestral music that sometimes it's pleasing to us. I think we get a sense of harmony and balance always being sort of pleasing and enjoyable and free, but actually sometimes it's not always what we want to hear.
Yes, I agree. 1,000 times true. And when it comes to these, another idea, which is being open to heal, to go deeper, per se, what gets in the way for most of us, Mike?
Well, yeah, I think it's us. I think it's whether we describe that as our separate self or, I tend to use the term egocentricity, or the egoic self, because that's really just when we've forgotten that there's an aspect of our own being that doesn't die. There's an aspect of our own conscious awareness that is here now, that doesn't come and go, that doesn't age, that it was here before any form in the universe and will remain after all the forms have gone. Even the sun, when the sun dies, all the planets, and there will be the essence of pure, empty, pure potentiality. And I think that when we reconnect with that, my sense is that that's where healing happens. So I think you're right. We've got to get ourselves out of the way in that sense, and let go. And strangely, it's that sort of, I think it might even be in the Christian gospel, where in order to live, we must die. And I think that's pointing to this notion that we can experience now. We can die while we're alive, and that's essentially what happens when we resonate and connect with emptiness or silence or stillness, because I feel that it's the stillness and the death, in a way it's the deathless, that which in us that doesn't die, that connects with a simple dimension of silence or space, which is here in the room with us. It's not actually that mystical or mythological.
Yeah, so true. And I wonder if we can experience this reality from that space all the time, or we dance, so we move between the ego and also the deathless, the timeless us.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's the latter, actually. I think it's the second, that's true. I mean, my understanding is that we can't really, we can't get rid of egoic consciousness, and actually we don't really want to. It's just that it's not at the center. It's like all of the delightfulness of life comes from uniqueness. There has never been any other Valeria, and there will never ever be a Valeria like you. You are a complete, unique expression of life that's never happened before and will never ever happen again. And so there's some real, joy and beauty in that, and wonder. And so I don't think that I don't think we can, as human beings, completely drop the ego, but in a way it can be decentralized, I think, so that we're more in harmony, I guess, with the deathless, or the free, perfect health and perfect, pure abundance and all those things. But so my sense is actually that it is the latter. It's a dance that as humans we naturally forget that, and then we remember, and then we forget, and then we remember. And some of us are perhaps more stable in that dance. It's more of a coordinated dance, and others are less so. But I don't know, I mean, in the end, it's a huge mystery, isn't it? We don't really know.
That's true, yeah. I agree. But that makes sense, though. It's the conditioned, isn't it? Conditions, the conditioned body and mind. The body itself is the ego, the anchor for what we call ego. So how can we get rid of them?
Yeah, and we don't really want to. And it's, of course, that...
we could. I guess we could, right, Michael?
Yeah. The only thing that would want to get rid of an ego is an ego, So it's just it comes in through the back door. It sort of recreates itself. It's sort of it's another, and it's a very subtle, ego, because it's living in anticipation, or it's living in anticipation of a better future usually, or it's reviewing the past, But in actual fact, when we're just completely freely connecting, much like we're doing now, or when we're simply just looking at a chair and doing nothing else, or just walking in the street, or doing the dishes, in a funny kind of way, the ego is already not at the center. It's just there when we need it.
What an amazing thing to even talk about these things. It really amazes me that we can talk about it. There's no separation, really. So it's life itself communicating. And there's something benevolent about it.
Yes, I agree. And I think there's the appearance of separation, which is nice, because I don't want to be looking at a world full of mics. but there's the appearance of separation. Yeah. But you're right. I think that when we connect on that, from that space, then it's almost like, pure being recognizes itself showing up as Valeria, and the pure being in Valeria recognizes itself showing up as Mike. So in that sense, have you ever had that feeling when you meet someone for the first time? It usually happens face to face, and you can't put your finger on it, but you feel like you know them somehow. You've met them in a previous life or something. My explanation for that is that somehow the essence of you recognizes itself in the essence of them. And that's profound, I think, for relationships, not just love and family relationships, but how humans can better live together, And in a funny kind of way, it's what most religions have been aiming for all these years.
So recognizing life and recognizing itself out there in others, in everything, really. Yeah, that's magical. When you think about it even, which is part of that anyway, of that wholeness. What is your understanding or vision, even if you have one, of liberation, of freedom? What would that look like?
Well, that is a good question. What would liberation look like? What does freedom look like? I could be tricky and say it looks like this, what's already happening. But, we do live, our minds are capable of anticipating and going back and reviewing and thinking of the future and so on. I don't know. I suppose if I think of what it looks like for me individually, it would be a life that is where I'm engaged in work and a life and activities that are kind of more aligned to my own essence. So, I believe we all have this personal sense of, there's a part of ourselves that is fixed in a way. So I don't see myself ever flying a plane or being a great scientist or, a musician or whatever. But I've always been quite good at writing. I like writing poetry. I like speaking and performing, had the acting background. And I love being with people and I love this work. I love, meditation and guidance of looking at awakened reality. So I think that my own version of a liberated life would be doing all of that really in a way that's that would support myself. So also that it would support itself. But I think the sort of spiritual teacher's answer is this is it. This is free, liberated life, even if that is living in a sense of, living in outward difficulty or poverty, which is hard for us to accept because in a way, if life itself is free and liberated, then it's free and liberated to be all things, not just the things that us humans think of as enjoyable.
Yes, so true. So already is. We're already free.
Yeah.
Yeah, that resonates. True. If there is something that we can call truth. Yeah. This is already it. We have heard that so many times, right? From, so many teachers. I mean, almost everyone that has gone far enough, deep enough to understand, realize what this is, what we call life, that has been realized, that we're already free. And it resonates, but it's like you said, it's unacceptable from that perspective of the egocentric self or the conditioned self.
Yeah.
It doesn't want to accept that.
That's right. And of course, what they're pointing to there really is that ultimately we're already free, but relatively we can be in bondage, or relatively we can be sick. There's so the essence or the silence or the emptiness is already free, but what happens within it can have the appearance of being trapped or in bondage or imprisoned or those things. And so it's almost like this paradoxical thing that we have to remember in a way and reconnect with what is already free, which then has the potential to untangle those knots and break those chains. I think that's how the dynamic works. It's that life itself is free to tangle itself up, but it's also free to untangle itself. But what can't untangle itself is the knot itself. The more the knot tries to untangle itself, the more knotted it becomes. But the more that it recognizes that it itself is made up of complete freedom, somehow, metaphorically, we can be free.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful metaphor for that. So the knots themselves, they are illusions. They don't really exist, but they do at the same time. I mean, it is ultimately a paradox. Yeah.
It is, yeah. And, it's something that we can't really kind of make, you said it right at the beginning, we can't make sense of it with our minds. But it's something that we can feel and experience, the dimension of, the already free, or the dimension of spirit, or the dimension of whatever we're calling it. When we connect with that, then we can see that relatively these things are illusions. So ultimately they are illusions, but relatively, of course, they're very real and very true to us. So, if I cut my finger, or if I'm in physical pain, then that's very real.
It is a feeling, a sense that is real. It is and it isn't it, Mike? It's that paradox again. We go back to it every time. How amazing. Oh, just a moment, Mike. I apologize for the noise.
Oh, don't worry. Well, it's quite good, actually, because when I do my guided meditations, often people, including me, we want a really quiet, serene, but in actual fact, what's interesting about the silence itself, and it's, again, because it's not a mysterious thing. It's the silence that's holding these words and the sound of the lawnmower, is that the silence itself isn't denying or resisting that noise. It's completely allowing it. And so somehow when we recognize that the qualities that are in the silence in this room, when we recognize and we look at them, then we can come into alignment really with those same qualities, because we have those qualities. We're also appearing out of the empty space, and our words and our thoughts are arising out of silence, and they disappear back into silence. But we as individuals, we want to control those conditions, and we're constantly frustrated, or in the sense of we're constantly we meet with failure in that every time.
Yeah. So the body, it's also part of that silence, which is the space that holds everything, which is incredible. But then it also allows it has space for the rejection. So it is what some say unconditional love.
Absolutely.
Right? So everything,
Absolutely.
It allows everything, even the rejection of what it is.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely. And that's why I think that it's comforting in a way to know that there is something here in our own direct experience that can hold and can accept and can love all of those things that we alone can't. Because it's very clear to me that if it's just me having to deal with, my sense of sadness or grief or loss, or frustration or regret or any of these human feelings, loneliness, despair, longing, all of these things. I know that I alone can't deal. I tried dealing with them on my own, and it nearly killed me, But it's actually the great celebration and the great relief is that, I don't actually have to do this all on my own, because there's a part of my own present, conscious, aware sense of self. There's that aspect of our own awareness, if you like, that aspect of our own existence. It has already accepted it, the stuff that we can't, And I think that's why people find comfort really in some religions, and comfort in God, or a faith in God, or a faith in something other than themselves, is because it allows us to surrender. It allows us to let go and say, okay, I admit it. I can't hold all of this. You'll have to hold it, space or God, or, the Tao, whichever. And I think that's why it's why it has this healing ability, really, because we finally can let go and realize that, okay, I don't have to do it all on my own.
Because it was never the case, really. We're never alone.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's a return, like we have heard that before. It's an unlearning, a return to, I usually say merging back, like not having a life, but being life itself.
Yes, that's absolutely, yeah. No, I think that's how it is, yeah.
So you wrote the book, The Gift of the Present, how to experience more peace, joy, and happiness through present moment awareness. Talk to me for a moment about the main intention of writing your book, Mike.
So the main intention of writing that little book, and it is a very short ebook, was to just get down on paper really and capture these practices that I've been sharing with people, and also that I've been doing on my own for a long time. So essentially, the main intention behind writing that book, and also in leading the guided sessions, is to facilitate an opportunity, if you like, or facilitate a space or an experience, so that anybody can directly recognize for themselves what's being pointed to. So, it's clear from our conversation that you've experienced this awakening, if you like, or, returning to the truth of yourself, or returning to ultimate truth, and the merging of body and spirit. And lots of people have had those experiences, but some people, it's really alien to them, And for me, for many years, I was very lost in egocentricity, or lost in selfhood, becoming, we all have that experience of, we either want something outside of us to make us happy. We're running towards something, or we're running away from things. Those very familiar experiences that all humans have. Even spiritual teachers have those. Great sages will still have those experiences, but they're not necessarily lost in them or deluded by them. So the intention really with the book and with the sessions is to really help people discover it for themselves. Because, what I'm talking about in the book is not mine. I can't give it to anybody. But I do know that there is a way to practice, if you like. And the simplest way I've found is sitting with what's already here. So we don't need anything special, because wherever we go, there's silence and there's sounds. Wherever we are, there is stillness and movement. And wherever we are, there is space and objects. So it's a sort of way of looking at the world. It's in a funny kind of way. It's not even a practice or a method. It's simply a perspective, a change in perspective. So one can be sitting on a train and be hypnotized by the objects in the train, or the people and our thoughts. Thoughts are objects as well, aren't they? We can be obsessed by all of those, looking at our phone, or we can start to look at the space and the objects appearing together. And it's just like shifting our perspective, like you might do in an art gallery. You shift your eyes a bit, or on the horizon, if you're on a cliff top or a hill, we can shift our perspective to what's right in front of us, our hand, or we can shift it to the horizon. So it's really, my real intention always is to provide an opportunity, a space for somebody to go, okay, I know what it is now. So that when they hear these other teachers, or they read a book that's pointing them towards presence or unconditional love, that it's not so much a mental, intellectual construct, but actually they go, yes, I know that, because it's a set point in my own body now. I know, it's almost like so that people can come away and go, I know why that didn't go very well, because I wasn't very present. Or, just so that it's an experience that they can, a marker, almost like a flag within their own body.
It seems like a contradiction when we think about already being spiritual, already being life itself. There's nothing to really get to, no destinations. But then we have practices that you actually don't call them practices. So it kind of almost contradicts that. But then it goes back to what we talked earlier about the paradox. So there is something to do and there's nothing to do.
Exactly.
It's fun, actually. It's a lot of fun.
It is. But it actually, a few years ago, I was sort of, I didn't like using the word practice and method and all that. And I always struggled to have any kind of regular practice or any sort of, I've always resisted routine in a way. But then I thought, hang on a minute. Actually, if we think about what the word practice really means, it's just what you do over and over. And most of us, so some people, awaken, or they have a massive insight, or they have a real shift in their life because they've practiced stuff that isn't working for them. So some people's practice in life is drinking too much alcohol, eating too much junk food, getting into the wrong relationships, arguing with their family, going from one job to the next, or doing whatever. But that's their practice. And in a way, it awakens them eventually, whether it's in the body or out of the body, they're free.
Yeah.
So I think that I have no real problem with practice. And I also think as well that all the spiritual teachers and in fact, anybody who's mastered anything, they have practiced. They have done that. Even the ones who say, I don't recommend a practice. But then if you look at the content of their life, they're giving talks all the time, they're writing books all the time. So in a way, they're constantly intimate anyway, because they're practicing pointing at it.
So true, Mike.
Isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
So I think as well, my life has only really begun to sort of properly integrate these insights because of beginning to practice more regularly. But I think that the reason that it's quite helpful sometimes to say to people, well, it's not really a practice, is in a way to sort of soften the resistance to it, because there is a resistance to, I've got to sit down at the same time every day and do this. That's not going to fit in my life. It's like, well, you don't have to do it that way, But I do find that it in a way, it's you tend to notice the people who've had the biggest sort of shifts, whether that's they've got really good in their career, or they've had these deeper shifts, usually they have actually, when you talk to them, they've spent a lot of time doing this sort of stuff.
It makes sense because everything is a practice. We call it habits or even obsessions. How many of us do the same thing? Just repetitions. You're brushing the teeth every day. Everything's a practice. I absolutely agree. So why not making intentionally something that can not just point, but open ourselves to life to the point of relaxing that part that resists, right? Resists life itself.
Yeah. It's sort of letting that, because we know how powerful and, wise and transformative the dimension of spirit is, or the dimension of presence. And so in a way, all we're doing is more and more, we're just opening up. We're just letting it guide a bit. We're letting its wisdom flow a bit more. So in a way, that's the practice. But I just think initially people need to sort of get familiar with it, because it is familiar. And you often find people after, a few times they've done this, they have memories of how that they were more aware of that part of themselves, if you like, when they were little children. Because I think when we're very young, we're quite connected to that free realm of open-hearted, consciousness.
True. We just don't have words to express what it feels like.
Exactly.
What it is.
True.
So you host Zoom meetings. Do they happen on a specific day and time, or this is something that always changes, the schedule changes?
So they do happen at the same time, actually. So for a while I was doing them weekly, but I've become busy with other projects in the area where I live. It's a poetry and spoken word project that I'm involved in, and my own work. But at the moment, we meet on the first Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. UK time. So that's actually the time that we met, wasn't it? So it would be, if it was Eastern time, I think at the moment it would be 2 p.m. Eastern time. But it's 7 p.m. UK time, and it's the first Wednesday of every month, and that's on Zoom. So the way I tend to do that is ask people to register, for the Zoom call. It's free to attend. I don't charge for that. People are welcome to make donations if they feel to. But my intention with that really is to offer a space for people just to just come along and try it, or be with others. Because what I found in the lockdowns in the pandemic is that I felt that there were people. I certainly felt I needed to connect in this deeper way with others. And when I, contacted and made an announcement on it on Facebook and contacted some people from my mailing list, there was a real willingness to do that. And so it began really properly in 2020, in March 2020, these Zoom groups.
What is your perspective on that? Is this something that has to do with the spiritual evolution or just nature doing what it does?
Well, in a funny kind of way, like I was saying before, I think the two are one and the same.
Yes.
So it's like, so yes, and in a way, it's like, in a funny kind of way, that this pandemic is a perfect example of a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, particularly this dance between what humans can do in and of ourselves, which on the relative level, on the outward level of action and creativity and things, we can do a lot. We've seen what we can do, but I think that we're seeing that in a way. We're seeing this dance between the wisdom of life itself, which the planet is connected to. Nature is never really not connected to that realm, because it doesn't have as complex a mind. Then the mind, it's not as not in our understanding complex. It's probably very complex actually. But so I think that I kind of think that it is like that. That if you like, it's a crisis of life and the planet, the universe, and all us humans, because we are not separate from it. And I almost feel a bit like if this is a big if because it's difficult. There's lots of disagreement about it. But if our activity on the planet is detrimental to the planet itself,
right.
I think that it would want to readjust itself to achieve more equilibrium. That
resonates. So it's almost like a call for balance, right? And then chaos must happen first. Destruction, like we talked, it has to do. So to balance something, it has, in a way, it needs to destroy something that's not serving itself. And then something like that. You're right. A lot of people might disagree, but it resonates when I hear the word balance, a call for balance or equilibrium. It makes sense to the mind and the heart. So your website is to find information about the Zoom meetings that you host and the book. That is heartofpresence.co.uk. Is that correct?
That's it.
And it is live now, right, Mike?
It is, yes.
Okay. Congratulations.
It was only offline actually for about 24 hours, but I've been meaning to update it since the beginning of the pandemic, really, with these new things that I'm doing. So I've finally done that. It's not, I'm a perfectionist like most people who make things, and so it'll constantly be tweaked and things. But yeah, if anybody's interested, they can go to the website. It's heartofpresence.co.uk, and there's information on there to register for the free monthly Zoom group. And I'm also now offering some weekly Zoom meetings, and they're for people who've perhaps been along to the monthly ones for a while and would like to go a bit deeper and do something more regular. So I'm actually starting to offer weekly meetings as well, on a Monday morning. So it'd probably be too early for a lot of American friends. But they're available as well to book, and that's, I think, £5 a ticket for those. So, and they'll be done on Zoom as well. So that's all information on the website, plus the book. I mean, the book was written very quickly, and when I get more focused, I'll write something longer.
Oh, you don't have to. It's so graceful. I love reading. It's almost like reading is the same thing to me. So reading your words is like writing. I'm writing myself. It's so clear. I actually enjoy short books or short anything. The shorter, the better, which is interesting. We talk a lot, but there's something about simplicity, right? That's resonates too.
Yeah, I think so. And, because I've read so much and done so many different approaches, I'm relatively good with words. I haven't written loads of published books, but, I've always enjoyed writing. And, even though I think on some level I might be very mildly dyslexic, but probably not very, but mainly probably because I've just written a lot. I write every day, whether it's a journal entry or, on the computer. And so, I hope that little book is clear and concise for people, because it's very easy, isn't it, for us to get overburdened and overwhelmed with different ways of describing things.
Writing is a healing tool as well, so sometimes it happens. My first book was really long because I had so much to talk to myself about.
Yeah.
So that was a long one. But yeah, after that, and then it seems like a loss of what was not clear became clear, and then my other books, they became shorter and shorter and shorter. So that makes sense too.
Well, you're busy. You've done, you do so much. It's very impressive and a great example.
Oh, I love this. This is my sacred hour, my sacred everything. If there's something sacred or talk about this, it's just, it's liberating, really. It feels incredibly good. We're almost at the end. I do have a few more questions for you. Would you like to read a passage in your book or add anything else, Mike, that we didn't discuss?
Actually, I tell you what, I wouldn't mind just reading is what I've just put on the website. So it's quite fresh. It sort of introduces this approach. So I'll read that, and hopefully people will enjoy it. So the Heart of Presence is really just a metaphor for the dimension of your own conscious awareness. And I talk about silence and space and stillness. And all this talk of dimensions and realms, spirit and consciousness, awareness, unity, consciousness, being, presence, unconditional love, pure potentiality, and so on. To most, it just might seem like a lot of new age, pseudo self-improvement style nonsense. But that's one reason I like to focus on what we can know and verify for ourselves right here and now. In my guided practice or guided meditation sessions, I usually begin by simply stopping and paying attention to the present reality of sounds and the silence in which the sounds are happening. From that point, we can become intimately and immediately acquainted with our own unique and direct experience of what all these words are pointing towards. We can take the same deliberate and intentional approach to observing space and objects in the space around us. A chair, a table, a lamp, a window, a tree, an airplane in the sky, the clouds, the sun, the moon, the stars, all freely appearing and disappearing in vast, open, empty space. The same with stillness. It may not feel like it to most of us most of the time, but there is a great deal of stillness in the world around us. Most of the objects in the room or the space around you are relatively still. And when we begin to deliberately and intentionally observe that stillness, the stillness in us, or the stillness from which we have our being and from which our minds and bodies move, seems to recognize and resonate with itself. So what I offer in the Heart of Presence guided practice sessions is a way for us to encounter and reconnect with the deepest aspect of our individual and our collective being by using simple, regular, and very ordinary practices that can help you live more congruently and in more alignment with the unconditional love and deep, deep wisdom of life itself. In essence, we're returning to the source of our being, and it's that source of life that is the teacher and the guide. We are what we've been looking for, and the light of awakening or of an enlightenment is the aware, conscious, and radically free presence of you here and now. So welcome home. You are what you've been waiting for all along.
How beautiful. I love all that, of course. Beautifully expressed. Thank you so much, Mike, for being you, for being open to life. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. It's lovely to connect, and thank you for the opportunity to come on to your podcast and talk to you and listen to the mowers. You see, they're the mowers are free to cut the grass and feed themselves.
Right. I love the way you said that earlier. Yeah, everything's part of this space, this silence. So silence welcomes everything. It's open to everything. So true. And that even breathing, it flows better when we listen to that.
It is. And you know, it's a wisdom that most of us connect to when we need to. You know, if you're with a little child and the child is getting distressed about something, mostly, automatically, other adults will go, it's okay, never mind. And they model a way to be non-resistant about that. And usually then the child relaxes about what it's, fighting against, because the adult's modeling that. And so it's not so mysterious really, but it's so easy for us to forget.
Yeah, it's easy to forget. So true. Going back to practices, right? We have been practicing quite the opposite, to resist more than to accept and be open.
And including me, Valeria, I always say when people come on to my meditations, I say, look, you're not really getting guidance from me, because I'm quite chaotic in my own life. I make mistakes all the time. I'm not sort of saying, do this and you'll be like me, because most people will be like, oh, I hope not.
That's beautiful too. The being humble, being open. That's being open. So it has to do with being honest, not being afraid of anything.
Yeah, because I think so many of us look at teachers or spiritual people and they think, oh, well, they're all right. I'm like, well, no, actually, I'm not. I suffer with, anxiety still comes and visits, confusion, sadness, all this stuff still happens. It's just that I don't get so lost in it as once I did.
Yeah, and that's because the practices that you engage in and the practices of being more open to life, that also resonates. I used to resist to practices as well, but then it makes so much sense. What are you saying? That we have been practicing to resist. We have been practicing to being egocentric. So now why not practice the opposite of that? I mean, both of them are our life. Everything is life itself anyway. Why not welcome both and not just one part of us?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
true. Before we say goodbye, where can we find more information about you, your work, your books? Besides the website, are there any other outlets such as YouTube and Facebook?
Yes. So I have a YouTube channel. I don't think it's got a particular name. I don't know. I have to
Yeah.
but I am on
Let me see.
YouTube, and there will be a link to that from the website. So I'm on YouTube, and I have a Facebook page as well, which is called The Heart of Presence. I think I've got Twitter and the other things, but I don't tend to use them too much. It's just like crazy, isn't it? Having to update all these things. But yeah, so the website heartofpresence.co.uk. I'm on YouTube and Facebook as well. I think if you search for the Heart of Presence, you'll find that on Facebook. On YouTube, I think if you just search for Mike Jenkins meditation, you might find it that way. It would usually come up.
Wonderful.
Yes. It does.
Thank you so much again, Mike, for your presence, for being open to life, for coming from that space, practicing coming from that space of openness and wholeness. Thank you so much again for who you are or what you are.
You're welcome. Thank you, Valerie. It's lovely to chat.
We'll talk soon. Bye for now, Mike.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Mike Jenkins and his work, please visit heartofpresence.co.uk.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.